Micah Parsons has been absolutely phenomenal for the Cowboys this year, but has he been their best defender? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. We are getting to your Twitter questions today. But before we begin, Landon, I just want to say yesterday I was very depressed with football. It felt like this whole season was just kind of a slog. I wasn't excited about anything. I didn't like the week 7 games. And then the 49ers lose to the Vikings, and I feel great again. It's a new day.
I gotta say, I was live tweeting it last night. I had a magical experience with a YouTube TV split screen, watching the 49ers Vikings, and then the for all you actual Dallas-based sports fans, the Rangers and the Houston Astros play against each other, and it was quite sports reinforcing to see both of them kind of pull through and kind of put more faith back into my Dallas-based sports team. So.
Yes.
I agree. I think that loss was enormous for the Cowboys. It puts them right back in the mix at the top of the NFC. But they still need to take care of business, and they need to come out of this bye week swinging and need a big win this week against the Rams.
I'd also like to take a little bit of credit for the 49ers losing streak. After they scored the first touchdown against the Browns, I tweeted, it's going to be a long time before the 49ers lose again. Since that tweet, they're 0-2. So you're welcome, Cowboy fans. I'll do this sports jinx tweet every once in a while. The hit rate's like 95%. So if we need one, just let me know.
Just keep picking the Cowboys opponents each week, and that's how we need to we need to make sure that power use properly.
Listen to the crossover show this week. You'll guarantee that it happens. All right, let's get to your Twitter questions. We've got some really good ones. The first one is from Christian. He wants to know, who has been the Cowboys' best defensive player this year, and why is DeMarcus Lawrence so underappreciated? And one more thing, should the Cowboys try extending him now?
I mean, let's banty about the second part late in a second, but I think it's a good point. I think DeMarcus Lawrence has every right to be considered currently the best performing defender on this team. I think Micah Parsons has been incredible. There's absolutely zero doubt about that. And part of DeMarcus Lawrence's success, obviously, is being fed by the presence of Micah Parsons. There's absolutely no denying that. But I think the way that DeMarcus Lawrence has played this year so far and produced so far this year is at a level that's as good as any defender in the league, honestly. I mean, maybe outside of Myles Garrett or really maybe just him. I think that, he's really shown that he's, with all the attention taken away to Micah Parsons, with all the kind of single one-on-ones, with the opportunity to move around a little bit on the defensive line, Lawrence has shown kind of a fountain of youth type of a situation in his career. But it's not terribly surprising me. The guy has a game that we feel like is going to age really well. It's technique based. He's not purely athletic based player.
No.
So it's not surprising. And to kind of get to the second question, let's talk about the mechanics of the contract aspect of it. But as far as the desire goes, yes, I want more of DeMarcus Lawrence, if that's the question.
By the way, Micah Parsons has played like 150 more snaps, and he's been more productive. So I'll still give the nod to Parsons. But in terms of like efficiency, Lawrence has been incredible this year. So this isn't to take away from anything from Parsons, because Parsons is still on FanDuel, the defensive player of the year leader. Like, we know what he is. It's just that DeMarcus Lawrence is having arguably the best season of his career, and he's getting a 10th of the notoriety, a 20th of it, right?
No. Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
The ratio of accolades to production is not nearly even enough. We're trying to balance it out a little bit more.
All right, so let's go over the contract. So he's playing this year on a cap number of 17.1 million, only 1.65 million in guarantees. He got a lot of guaranteed money up front and a signing bonus, but next year, zero guaranteed money on his contract. His cap number is 20.4 million. And then in 2025, there's a void year where his cap hit is 7.4 million. Again, he'll be 32 next year. But I think I would be interested in adding another year to his contract, maybe smoothing out that cap number a little bit more. Maybe you get it closer to like, what is it? A combined, I'm looking at it now, what, 28 million? Maybe you try to get it to be like
13 or 14.
yeah,
something like
13
that.
to 14, and you add a little bit more guaranteed money and some more incentives for DeMarcus Lawrence. And probably the best way to do the incentives is based on games played or snaps played, because what when he plays, he's going to be awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's this whole situation has extended DeMarcus Lawrence's career. I mean, the years previous to this, when we were living and dying on his injury report, and the idea of whether he was going to make it in the game, and then when he got to the game, we had to play him 60 plus snaps in order to play decent defense,
Have a chance.
To have a chance. Now he is one of a crowd of really talented players. Obviously, sticks out even with Michael Parsons in there. But he's only having to play half as many snaps, and that means he's playing at an incredibly high efficient rate. It's helping the wear and tear of his body. We won't mention the things that haven't been happening to him that have happened to him in the past. And I think that all these things are creating a positive feedback loop for the health of his body and the health of his career. And so as long as the situation is similar to this, where we're not reliant on him to go out and produce at 50 plus, snaps a game, that there's other guys that can come in and give healthy rotations and good snaps. Yeah, I'm in on signing him for another year, extending him another year, because I do think that he can play this sort of game at this level for several more years, just because of the way his game is. It's a technique based game.
Now, if he was 33 or 34, I would say no. I think I'm against that. But he's 31 right now. His contract takes him again through his age 32 season. We've seen guys that are, I would say, similar talents, like Justin Houston, play well into their mid to late 30s. We've seen Brandon Graham for the Eagles. Now, he's getting really up there in age, and I think his game is starting to decline. But even the last couple of years, at age 34 and 35, giving Philadelphia quality snaps, I think I'm certainly interested in at least tacking on one more year to Tank's contract.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, again, just looking at the way his game has aged, and we talk about the technique aspect, but also he's doing the things that you see these guys who last longer do, right? He's getting a little more svelte. He's losing a little bit more weight. He's focusing on technique. He's taking care of his body in a way that he hadn't maybe in previous years. So he looks to be in it for the long haul. He looks like one of those guys that you see that plays solid football until he's 35 years old, 34 years old. So I'm definitely interested in at least getting another year, and then let's see what happens after that year.
And I think you probably do that contract extension, probably not during the season this year, but probably this offseason.
Yeah,
you probably wait to see how the rest of the year goes, how his body is feeling after the year, because that's the other thing that we didn't account in. There's a chance that DeMarcus Lawrence just wants to play this last year and be done. He's got a big family. He might want to he's already been in the NFL. Is this year 10 for him? He might feel like, hey, after 11 years, I'm good. I don't need to put my body through anymore. But I think next offseason is when you try to figure that out.
I agree. Yeah. It seems like he's having more fun this year than he has in previous years. And he's more involved in media stuff and being more, kind of visible. I tend to think that he's enjoying himself. I'm hoping he comes back again.
All right, Leon, let's answer some more Twitter questions, including what is the Cowboys' best personnel grouping so far? We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. It is so easy to create a job post on LinkedIn Jobs. All you have to do is add your job and then the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That is linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. We also want to let you know that this show is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS because it's just you against the numbers instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks. All you have to do is pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. This is the most fun I've had ever playing DFS. You can win up to 25 times your money this football season. There's so many different stats to choose from, so many different players. They also have the PrizePicks reboot policy, which will reboot your entry if one of your players gets injured in the first half but does not return. They have this available for the NFL and the college football top 25 games. Again, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second half, that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with injury insurance. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We want to let you know that the Locked On NFL Kickoff live show is here every Friday. Locked On will go live at 2 p.m. Eastern on every Locked On NFL YouTube channel. Host Tanitra Batiste, Jarvis Davis, and Kyle Krabs will break down every game on the NFL slate to get you ready for your team's matchups, your fantasy lineups, your betting angles, and more. Plus, get the in-depth local analysis from our stable of NFL hosts across the country who know these teams better than anyone else. Find Locked On NFL Kickoff live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern time on any Locked On NFL YouTube channel. Later, let's get to our next question. This one from Gorn, an everydayer. Do the Cowboys have a personnel grouping on offense that they can hang their hat on?
Well, they do have a personnel grouping that they do hang their hat on. I don't know if that they necessarily should be so much. I mean, they clearly are a 11 personnel team. I mean, they're running it at a high rate, probably close to 50% of their plays are out of 11 personnel. So I think that's kind of where they would like to, hang their hat as far as, being the kind of regular formation that they can run the vast majority out of their plays out of. But I think the issue is that they've had kind of inconsistent results from, and this doesn't just extend to just the 11 personnel. I think this is a problem in 12 as well, is that they've had kind of mixed results from those last of the roster, the substitute guys.
Right? It feels like they have 4 skill guys they could rely on: Tony Pollard, CeeDee Lamb, Brandin Cooks, and Jake Ferguson. It's that last one that is giving them so many problems right now.
And even Cooks hasn't produced at a level that we would have hoped so far. So that's the issue, is that, you've got talent at each one of these spots. And I do think that eventually that's going to sort itself out. I believe in it, but it hasn't so far. And I think that even when you've gotten Gallup having good games, it's like you can't seem to manage to get all 3 of these guys on a same page, or you can't get the tight ends going the way that you wanted to. So I think there's a couple of younger players in this team that kind of just need to sort some things out, specifically at the tight end position, that will make that personnel group a little bit better. And then I think just getting a little bit better usage, hopefully figuring out how to use Brandin Cooks a little bit, will help open things up more for Gallup, because I feel like with Gallup, it's whether or not the, kind of predefined routes that they throw to Gallup all the time work or not against the team that you're playing. And that's what's going to determine whether Gallup has a good game. Against New England, he had, he was like 5 for 5 and had like 60 yards or something. And against the Chargers, he was, whatever it was, 2 for 10 or whatever the target share was. So I think that they need to find a way to unlock Cooks a little bit more, and then use Gallup in a way that isn't so like high variance. Like don't only throw him the ball in a highly contested situations and then do that 10 times a game. Like I just think that
I just don't know how to do that with Gallup anymore. Like, because he's actually not bad if you run like some wide receiver screens, but I don't think that's his calling card, right? And I think a lot of his game is throwing the ball to him down the field, but that's just going to lend yourself into a lot of contested catch stuff. So how do you get him some easy touches in the flow of your offense right now?
Slants, digs. I don't understand. I watched that whole Minnesota 49ers game, and the thing that made me happy was the result, but the thing that made me pissed was that Minnesota basically played the offensive game plan that the Cowboys should have played, right? Attack the middle of that defense, send them long, make their incredible linebacker hoof it all the way down 40 yards on the field, and then attack underneath, send dig routes, slant routes across the middle, throw the ball in the middle of the field to your tight end, for God's sakes.
Yeah,
like
Hawkins had a big game.
Yeah, and so I think that's, let's see Gallup with some more slants. Let's see Gallup with some more dig routes. Let's see him in this intermediate area that is more than just go deep and then fake like you're going deep and stop. Like there's more to the route tree that we've seen him run before, and it just seems like this kind of insistence. And again, maybe it's not that they're not calling it, and maybe it's that Dak's not throwing it, but throw the ball in the middle of the field. Attack the middle of the field a little bit more, and I think that you're going to have a little bit better results against some of these teams that have these incredible linebackers that are able to kind of seal off the top end of the field. Make them pay for that. Make them come down and to cover the middle of the field.
That's why, I mean, this isn't the solution to the problem that the Cowboys have right now, but I do want to see Tolbert a little bit more, because I think that's one spot that he does better than Gallup is. I think he's just better in the middle of the field for whatever reason. I think he's a little bit more wiry, and I think he just has a good feel of how to get open on zones and that kind of stuff.
A little more physical, right? It feels like he's a little more physical. Yeah.
The other question I had for you is, do you think this is a personnel issue? Is it a scheme issue, or is it an execution issue, kind of figuring out their best personnel grouping?
I think it's an execution issue, I think it's still them trying to figure out how to best use these guys, and like they've kind of sorted out like the best way to get the ball to CeeDee Lamb a little bit, but I think they're still trying to figure out the configuration of where and how to use Cooks and Gallup. There's times when I feel like the Cooks and Gallup's role need to be flopped, right? Like,
yeah, I would agree.
Like there's times when Cooks needs to be the guy that's going down the field to like actually press the secondary back, and Gallup should be the guy that's coming in across the field underneath to catch these kind of middle of the field balls. And so I do think that they need to kind of sort out a little bit better, like whole field concepts that include all three wide receivers, because it does feel like there are too many times when they go through the offense and a first read isn't there, and Dak doesn't have great second and third options based on where he
There's no safety valves that aren't behind the line of scrimmage.
Well, it just feels like the timing is off, right? It feels like by the time he gets to the safety valve, it's too late. Or he gets to that second or third window and he's late in the window. And I don't know if that's like, we're not offensive coordinators, so it's impossible for us to tell whether that timing is because the wide receiver took an extra step or took too long to get where he needed to go, or if Dak is getting to his second read too late. But it just feels like there isn't like perfect sync yet in like how quickly and where Dak is getting to his progressions and versus where the wide receivers are supposed to be in those progressions.
I want to talk a little bit more about Brandin Cooks, because we just haven't really seen any deep shots to him at all in the first 6 games of the season. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Gametime is the fastest and the easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. I use the Gametime app all the time. I love it so much. Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. See the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what you're going to be looking at when you get to your event. The all-in prices show your total upfront so that you're going to get a great deal without any hidden fees. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds with just 2 taps. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL, all one word, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Landon, our last question here comes from John. He wants to know, the Cowboys took a lot of shots downfield to Brandin Cooks early in training camp, but we haven't seen it all during the season. What's going on? Can we expect more of them after the bye week?
I'm wondering how much of this is, I think part of it is how the Cowboys are being played, and the defense that are being presented to the Cowboys because of Brandin Cooks being there. But I also wonder how much of this is tied to league-wide trends. The shocking numbers of league-wide offenses is something that I think that we as individual Cowboys fans don't talk about enough. But a lot of the regression league-wide that's happening with offenses is similar to what the Cowboys are seeing. Mm-hmm. There's less team scoring in red zone. There's just less points being scored overall. In fact, I think I read somewhere that they're on pace for the lowest point totals is in almost 20 years or something.
I believe
like
it.
That. And
I saw a stat yesterday. I want to make sure I get it right, but
mm-hmm.
Josh Allen through the first 6 games is 5 of 60 on passes thrown beyond 20 air yards.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's shocking how inefficient he's been throwing the ball down the field.
And I think that, there's been lots of talk about the why here. I've heard different things from, this is finally some of the rules kind of catching up a little bit to offenses, specifically things like illegal man downfield penalties, which is mm-hmm. kind of putting a damper on some of the RPO stuff. But that doesn't necessarily, I'm sorry, I'm kind of figuring this out as I'm speaking. I'm wondering if that lack of usage of RPO has really killed one of the major tools that offenses use to counteract the shell coverages that have become popular in defenses now, right? It's just a way to kind of make defenses wrong, even when they have that extra man in the box. But I regress. I think the point is that I think it's a combination of teams anticipating that Cooks is a deep threat and not wanting to get beat that way, and so just kind of preemptively sending shell coverage his way, or at least putting a topper on him. And then on top of that, I think that there are league-wide trends where teams are just playing more shell coverage, playing more keep it in front of you coverage, and that the Cowboys are just part of something that's happening across the league where defenses just aren't allowing the big play. They are understanding that the only way to counteract a defense that is taking the ball away at a high rate is to create big plays. Yeah. And so I think this, again, to go back to the Dak conversation in the offseason about interceptions, this is why the talk about interceptions wasn't as concerning to us, because we understood that interceptions are going to happen, but that they can be counteracted by continued big plays that were happening in the offense. And that's what our point was, is keep allowing Dak to cook, because it will overcome some of these turnovers. Defenses have caught on to that, and now they're trying to do both in equal measures. Stop to take the ball away, obviously, but more importantly, to force offenses to drive the ball the length of the field, putting in a bunch of snaps where, more and more opportunity for things to go wrong, and not allowing offenses to take huge chunks out of them and just score easy points.
I think the Cowboys need to take more shots. I would like to see the more max protect and, have 3 guys out on route, Cooks down the field, CD in the middle, and then an outlet like Jake Ferguson or whatever. I would love to see that. However, you can kind of look at the schedule and go game by game and understand why they haven't taken more shots. Week 1 against the Giants, they were up by so much so early, they didn't need to, and it was raining out. Okay. Yeah. Week 2 against the Jets, the Jets have a really good secondary. We just saw the week before Buffalo threw 3 interceptions down the field. So the Cowboys played kind of a dink and dunk style of offense where they were able to put up 30 points. The following week against Arizona, that's probably the game they needed to take shots.
Yeah.
It was also the game they were without 3 starting offensive linemen. I just don't think they felt comfortable enough leaving Dak in to get hit with those 3 guys. Week 4 against New England's notorious for not giving up big plays down the field. You played the 49ers in week 5. I mean, the Cowboys offensive line was terrible that game. And then in week 6 against the Chargers, again, another shell defense that's notorious for not giving up plays over the top. So I think they need to make sure that they are taking more deep shots, but you can understand maybe why they haven't done so in the first month and a half of the season.
Yeah, and that's the other thing to remember here is that even though this is the bye week and it seems a little weird, we're only in week 7. Like we're not even halfway through the season yet. So the sample sizes aren't quite there yet, and we all know what September football looks like, which has been 4 of these 6 games that we played so far.
I don't want to get into our preview yet of the Rams game, but to me, this is a game where you take shots down the field. You're at home against a team that doesn't really have any edge rushers. And the cornerback that's likely going to be covering Brandin Cooks is Darren Kendrick, who ran a 4.94 at his pro day. Like, that's the guy that you want to be targeting down the field. I wouldn't be surprised if we get multiple shots to Brandin Cooks early in this game, 30, 40 air yards.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I mean, again, I do think that this is the game where we're hoping to see a lot of corrections, right? And not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I do think that there's lots that we're going to be watching for this game to see where things tinkered with in this offense. How do the tight ends look? How do the rookies look after kind of getting a breath to kind of reevaluate some things? I think seeing whether or not Brandin Cooks, gets some more deep shots is another one of those things that we're going to check off our list for post-bye improvements by this Cowboys offense.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Go check out the show on YouTube. We post shows every single day over there. Go follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosier. And we'll see you right back here tomorrow.